Chen Fan, who has traveled through different worlds and lived a low-key life, never imagined that he would suffer a disaster due to his childhood divorce being framed by the Virgin and expelled from the sect, abolishing rust removal, but activating the Check.in system at this time. Chen Fan Meng, who has been unable to activate the system due to being too meticulous. Ding, sign into the Forbidden Mountains and obtain 10,000 years of cultivation. Ding, sign into the Reincarnation Sea and gain an indestructible buff bonus. Ding, sign into Bagua Mountain and obtain the Tai Chi diagram, starting from here, taking off all the way. Keywords of the novel. I, who was expelled from the sect, signed in for 10,000 years of cultivation without a pop-up window. I, who was expelled from the sect, signed in for 10,000 years of cultivation. Download the complete set of TXT. I, who was expelled from the sect, signed in for 10,000 years of cultivation. Read the latest chapter on reading. Chapter 1. Exiting the sect and activating the Check.in system. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Exiting the sect and activating the Check.in system. Wandao Immortal Sect. Luoxia Mountain. Today is the once every 3 years grand competition, and it is also a moment that countless disciples aspire to. On this day of great competition, some people have unparalleled supernatural powers and become famous at once. Some people instantly understand the Tao and break through battles, while others suppress contemporary times with unparalleled postures. 3 years of sharpening swords, only waiting for today. Now that the big competition is halfway through, several dark horses have been killed, which is amazing, and some people have done unethical things that are despised by thousands of people. In the previous match, Chen Fan took a ruthless move and, in order to achieve victory, used an evil method and poison to attack the holy maiden Mu Qingge. Nowadays, Mu Qingge is unconscious, her breath flowing like a thread, as if a gust of wind will fade away. She has an excellent appearance, a beautiful face, and a petite and delicate body that is very lovable. On weekdays, he exists in the sect like a beloved child. But today she was severely injured by malicious individuals using evil methods, and in the future, Daoji may suffer serious injuries. On the martial arts competition stage, Chen Fan was pressed to the ground by 3 senior brothers. He struggled desperately and shouted, "I didn't poison her." All of this was directed and performed by her. However, no one believed his words, and countless people sneered and cursed angrily. Such a villain should be expelled from the sect. If left behind, wouldn't it be a joke to become a representative and participate in various sect competitions in the future? What's expelling from the sect? Is that all for Sister Qingge's pain? In my opinion, we should abolish her cultivation before expelling from the sect. I didn't expect that Chen's senior brother, who is usually gentle and refined, would be like this. He knows people but not hearts. Everyone cursed, disappointed, disgusted. You're reckless, don't blame me for killing you on the spot if you talk nonsense anymore. A chubby senior brother slapped Chen Fan's head and cursed angrily. If you don't want to die, just shut up, said another horse-faced senior brother, with a sinister expression that contained endless killing intent. Struggling with anger on his face, Chen Fan closed his mouth and was speechless. He doesn't know who he recruited and who he provoked. Why are you still being targeted by someone's bureau even though you are so low-key? Chen Fan was originally an ordinary person from Blue Star, but due to an accident, he could only lie in bed for the rest of his life. In a state of anxiety, one day after falling into a coma, he traveled across and arrived at this mystical world. He was reborn and joined the Wandao Immortal Sect seeking immortal path. Because he had read various online novels in his past life, he was well aware of the dangers of this world. Therefore, he also practiced honestly, collecting medicinal herbs and alchemy outside of the cave every day. Life is incredibly fulfilling and peaceful. He did not offend anyone in the sect, and instead made some friends through alchemy, earning the title of a junior alchemist. But with such a persona, he was still calculated today. Today in the big competition, he drew lots to fight against the Holy Maiden. His cultivation was not high, and he mainly studied alchemy. During the war, he was also suppressed by the Holy Maiden, which was a good result. If he were to suppress the Holy Maiden, it would be frightening, especially for the potential Holy Son who was vying for the position of Holy Son. However, shortly after the battle, the Virgin used formations to shield everything from the outside world. In the formation, the saint revealed what she wanted to do, saying that she wanted to frame him and make him leave the Immortal Sect. Afterwards, the formation was broken, and the Holy Maiden was on the brink of death with severe poison. Everyone's spears immediately pointed at him, even the elders who were spying on the formation said that he had used poison techniques to poison the saint. Chen Fan clenched his fist, his heart full of mixed emotions. If only he had a system, then he wouldn't be so frustrated. He closed his eyes and was taken away by 3 senior brothers as if accepting his fate. Mu Qingge slowly opened her eyes, her charming little face devoid of blood, and a pair of beautiful eyes that had lost their radiance looked around. "Where's junior brother Chen?" She spoke weakly and said to one of the senior brothers being treated. "Imprisoned, this son has a malicious temperament, and even imprisonment is cheaper for him," said the senior brother angrily. "If it's a life and death enemy, that's fine, but this is a big competition among peers. As for using such means, it's all because Qingge is not proficient in learning. I guess Chen junior brother doesn't think his poison skill will affect me. It's Qingge who disappointed Chen junior brother and is vulnerable to the poison skill." Mu Qing'er said weakly, her pretty face full of guilt. "At this moment, it's none of your business, and you don't have to speak for that beast. He has a talent for alchemy and has saved many people, but he will fight back one by one. He will do whatever it takes to win, especially against his peers. This is considered expulsion. Senior brother's words are too heavy, it's just a big comparison." Mu Qingge coughed a few times, her anger flowing like a thread. "Holy sister, please rest first. I will go and see the judgment. If the judgment is unreasonable, I will definitely summon my fellow disciples to seek justice for you." After the man finished speaking, he turned around and left. If he could look back at this moment, he could see the cold smile on Mu Qingge's face. Law Enforcement Hall. Chen Fan sat on a chair, in front of him, being judged by the 3 law enforcement elders. Chen Fan, due to poisoning his fellow disciples in Dabi, killing them in pain is considered immoral. The 7th method of the 10,000 Immortals sect is to expel assassins from the sect. The 10th example of the 7th law is to harm the seed disciples within the sect. The cultivation should be abolished and expelled from the sect, and all items obtained within the sect should be confiscated. Are you convinced? The elder sitting in the center said 3 times before looking at Chen Fan. The people observing around all showed joy, and some even said that when it comes to unloading 8 pieces and turning them into sticks. On the chair, Chen Fan's expression was numb. "Well, it's already decided anyway, it doesn't matter," he said indifferently, "and now everyone can see that this so-called fair and just law enforcement hall has colluded with the holy maid Qingge, and he is bound to be beaten. What are you arrogant about? Don't think that if you make a miserable appearance, someone will pity you. Bah! Killing my fellow disciples' pain is really embarrassing for me, the Immortal Sect." The onlookers glared angrily and cursed at Chen Fan's pretended melancholy appearance. "Step down, execute tomorrow," said the central elder seriously. Afterwards, under the abuse of the crowd, Chen Fan withdrew from the trial and was imprisoned. He was calm in his heart had already died. He believed that after being expelled from the sect, he would be killed and silenced by the holy maiden Mu Qingge. To be honest, it's quite miserable. How could I offend such a person? My own status is also 100 or 8,000 miles behind that of a potential saint. The prison was pitch black, seemingly unable to feel the flow of time. I don't know how long it took, but a crisp sound of bells rang out. Chen Fan's ears twitched slightly, and upon hearing it, He knew that it was the bell worn by Mu Qing'er on her wrist, because she was the first to wear it in the entire Holy Land, and it was only later that the female disciple followed suit. And who else can come here at this time besides Mu Qing'er? Chen Fan looked at the blurry and graceful figure at the door without speaking. Suddenly, just as he was silent, an electronic synthesizer sounded in his mind. Ding, the host is experiencing hardship, and the Check.in system automatically wakes up. Ding, the Check.in location has been refreshed. Please go to the Forbidden Mountains to sign in. Reward 10,000 years of cultivation. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Divorced Daughter with Abolished Cultivation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Divorced Daughter with Abolished Cultivation. The sudden sound stunned Chen Fan's eyes. He was stunned for a few seconds and asked in his heart, unsure, where is the Forbidden Mountain range for Check.in? The Forbidden Mountains, on the border of Dongzhou, are 10,000 miles away from the host's location. The electronic synthesizer sounds again. Chen Fan blinked his eyes and suddenly felt like crying. Originally, I didn't have an awakening system because I didn't encounter danger due to being too cautious before. He suddenly froze at the thought of this. Wait, that reward. 10,000 years of cultivation. He stared wide-eyed in disbelief at the void. This is simply taking him from hell to heaven. With 10,000 years of cultivation, how could he be afraid? What's wrong with you? Don't you want to ask me why I dealt with you? Mu Qing'er's cold voice suddenly sounded. Chen Fan finally snapped out of shock and looked at his graceful figure, saying, there's no need, he's still a dead person anyway. Hee, what you're looking at is open, but I'll tell you without asking. Do you remember the Great Chu dynasty? When the 4 characters of the Great Chu dynasty appeared, Chen Fan's gaze was fixed. That is exactly where he was born. He was born in the general gate of the Great Chu dynasty and was later sent by his father to the Immortal Sect for cultivation. I have been practicing for more than 10 years now and have hardly ever seen my father again. Mu Qing'er is saying this to take action against his family. There's no need to show that kind of incompetent and angry expression. This saint disdains to take action, and saying, "De Chu," is also about our relationship. My name was Chu Xiuxiu before, do you remember? Chu Xiuxiu. Chen Fan looked bewildered, as the name seemed somewhat familiar. Oh, you really forgot, did you? Your divorce made them sad for a month back then. Mu Qing'er said word by word. Upon receiving the prompt, Chen Fan finally remembered some memories of not entering the Immortal Sect before the age of 6. At that time, there was indeed such a thing, but because I wanted to enter the Immortal Sect for cultivation, I asked my father to politely refuse the Emperor's offer of marriage. What are you sad about? I don't know you, and don't you think arranged marriage is not good? Chen Fan felt that evading the engagement did not cause any shame. He wants to practice, not to push the princess to find a commoner woman in order to humiliate the princess. Moreover, the matter of bestowing marriage was very secretive. It was only mentioned by my father and the Emperor during a private drink, and I planned to announce it after reaching an agreement, but in the end, it was not agreed upon. So few people know about all of this, why did the princess be humiliated? Why was Mu Qing'er holding a grudge against me? He never saw this person when he was young. Of course you haven't met me, but when I was young, I just fell in love with you with a glance. Unfortunately, you mercilessly refused the engagement. What kind of immortal path are you looking for? Mu Qing'er sneered and laughed. Chen Fan did not answer the conversation, which was unexpected and an unimaginable path. He did not expect that love and hate would also happen to him. Do you regret it now? The path to immortality is long, but those who seek immortality have never become immortals. Therefore, scheming and fighting is the norm. I don't regret it. Chen Fan said firmly. After learning the reason for the incident, he lost interest. Now he has another way, which can soar to the sky. As long as you go to the Forbidden Mountain range to complete Check.in and sign in, your cultivation for 10,000 years will be enhanced. If your cultivation for over a decade is ruined, it will be ruined. Oh, it's not bad that I'm the one the Virgin likes. Actually, I don't want to kill you, Mu Chinga said, slightly sarcastic. Let's go, I'm already prepared, it's because I'm too naive. After Chen Fan finished speaking, he ignored it and returned to the dark corner, closing his eyes. Mu Chinga didn't say anything further, just sighed. The resentment from her childhood has finally been resolved today. But she was not happy. Chen Fan's relief and indifference made her heart even more uncomfortable. Anyway, I'll be leaving in the future, and I should also look for my own immortal path. I can't waste all my talent. In the morning, outside the great formation of the Immortal Sect, Chen Fan stood on the high platform, with the elder from the law enforcement hall standing beside him. He glanced at the densely packed disciples and said loudly, Chen Fan, he was expelled from the sect for killing his fellow disciples. Secondly, the seed disciples have been threatened, causing losses to the development of our sect. We hereby declare the abolition of cultivation and expulsion from the sect as punishment. After being expelled, our disciples are not allowed to take action against Chen Fan, the cause and effect have already been resolved. The presiding judge finished speaking and looked at Chen Fan, who was relieved. He had no expression on his face and raised his palms high. This scumbag should be killed quickly. Joining other sects in the future will also cause losses to other forces. It's really disgusting. I used to think that junior brother Chen was a good person, but now that the incident has been exposed, I really agree with the saying, people are separated by their stomachs. I'm not very satisfied with this result. Why can't I take action against him and have a murderous heart towards my goddess? I really want to break him down and vent my hatred. Countless people cursed and cheered, eagerly anticipating what would happen next. Suddenly, an untimely voice rang out in the crowd. Brother Chen, I will always believe in you. Countless cannibalistic gazes looked over. The speaker was a young man, probably only 12 or 13 years old. Everyone's anger faded slightly when they saw the situation. Since you're still young, I won't talk about you anymore. Chen Fan is not a good person. Chen Fan looked at the young man speaking with just a smile on his face. Then he closed his eyes. The law enforcement elder's raised hand fell. Without any earth-shattering aura fluctuations, it looks plain and unremarkable. The palm landed on Chen Fan's chest. Puff. Blood spurted out, and Chen Fan fell from the high platform. He fell to the ground, and all his cultivation in the Dantian area over the past decade dissipated. His body was filled with pain, his face was pale, there was no injustice or sadness in his eyes, only calmness. He was wearing a simple black coat, holding a piece of wood in his hand, and limped away in front of everyone's eyes, like a lost dog. Looking back at the time when I was still a child, I came to the Wandao Immortal Sect. My senior brother was enthusiastic in guiding me, and I nodded in confusion. My eyes are filled with longing for cultivation, looking forward to and longing for that world of cultivation. Faitian Dundee, everything is so beautiful. I thought that cultivators were all pure-hearted and have few desires, but only after they arrived did I realize that there were also schemes. He will remember the feeling he longed for when he entered the mountain, and keep it in his heart for a lifetime. He did not hold any grudges against the Immortal Sect, and his personal grudges did not need to escalate to the sect. Just now, when the elder was enforcing the law on him, he saw the hesitation in the elder's eyes. In theory, this kind of emotion should not appear. Is it difficult for the elder to know that something is wrong? But because the evidence is conclusive, we have to take action. Chen Fan smiled and accepted it calmly. The emaciated figure gradually drifted away, and Mu Chinga sighed in her heart. She listened to the dissatisfaction of the people around her and stopped a senior brother from acting. This was not acting, but giving Chen Fan a chance to survive. What a childish revenge. If it weren't for the demon, I wouldn't have done it either. I can confidently advance to the altar next. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Signing in for 10,000 years of cultivation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Signing in for 10,000 years of cultivation. The sun is shining brightly. Without cultivation and spirit stones, Chen Fan now is an unparalleled poor person. Without cultivation, he is unable to break through the valley and absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to maintain his physical functions, but fortunately, the path he takes is a path of physical cultivation. He has dabbled in swords, spears, and halberds, and the reason for learning physical skills is that he is worried that one day he may lack enough mana to be killed when facing enemies. A distance of 10,000 miles is not much for Dongzhou, but it is an unreachable distance for Chen Fan now. Walking through the mountains and forests, Chen Fan began to practice again. In this world, the cultivation realms are gathering spirit, slaying body, breaking dharma, spirit bridge, other shore, divine platform, ascending God, true God, divine king, slaying God, shaping immortal, and so on. Previously, Chen Fan's realm of breaking the Dharma realm was not more than 20 years old. At this age, he reached the middle level of breaking the Dharma in the entire Wandao Immortal Sect, and even in Dongzhou. Those who advance to the upper echelons or saints are on the other side. When Chen Fan had a duel with Mu Qingge before, the opponent suppressed his cultivation and was at the same level as him. Even so, he couldn't defeat a saint-level character. The fact is, that guy directed and acted on his own, planting a poison path for himself in the name of his own research on medicine. In the end, she poisoned herself with her own poison and falsely accused Chen Fan. Chen Fan no longer cares about this result. His top priority now is to sign in at the Forbidden Mountains. If he could encounter it again in the future, he would naturally feel the pain of being a killer. Along the way, in a month's time, he reshaped his cultivation and reached the triple realm of spiritual gathering. That person didn't arrange for someone to kill me. Chen Fan was puzzled and a little relieved. But just as this idea first came to mind, a young man with red hair blocked his way. The young man with red hair has beautiful facial features and a straight figure, and there are 3 men dressed in black next to him. These people exude a captivating aura and their eyes are full of teasing expressions. I almost wrote on my face that I am the best in the world and the most handsome. Chen Fan looked at the red fur and recognized it as Mu Qingge's licking dog. I often try to please that woman on weekdays, but unfortunately she doesn't have much feelings for the young man with red hair. But that's how it makes red hair feel a desire to conquer. You don't seem surprised. Red hair smiled at Chen Fan and said, "It's just a prediction." Chen Fan remained calm and had a strategy in place. Since you have expectations, then rest assured and go on the road. Don't resist, resisting will only lead to even more tragic death. Red hair smiled in parentheses. Don't you think killing me like this is a bit cheap for me? I can't believe you still have a tendency to be abused, so how do you say you die? Red hair frowned in surprise upon hearing this. I'm going to the Forbidden Mountains, Forbidden Land. Chen Fan didn't hide. He had already thought of what to do if someone came. He is just a scumbag now, and those licking dogs are very happy to let him die. He can ask the other party to take him to a forbidden place. The Forbidden Mountains. You really found a cruel way to die for yourself, but you didn't have so much time. The young man with red hair sneered. Chen Fan shook his head and didn't say anything, ignoring the shouts of the people behind him and leaving straight away. Follow him and see what kind of medicine this kid is selling in his gourd. There is a great terror in the Forbidden Mountains. Perhaps he said this to live longer, but it's also good. It's too cheap to easily kill him, and letting him be consumed by the Forbidden is the biggest revenge. The young man with red hair thought for a moment and said to his subordinates, "Obey, young master." If he dares to cheat, we will push him into a forbidden place. Without a true god, entering a forbidden place is a deadly situation. He probably just wants to survive for a few days, sneered another subordinate with a gloomy and pitiful smile. There are too many people pleasing Muchinga, and there may be others coming to cause trouble in the future. You must hide well and not let those people find loopholes. And when you arrive at the forbidden place, take off his divine soul imprint and bring it back. The young man with red hair smiled and said. The three subordinates nodded consecutively, then their figures flashed forward and ran forward. As soon as the three of them left, Red Hair thought of something and said, by the way, use the shadow stone to record the scene of him being devoured by taboos. In the following days, Chen Fan, under the escort of those people, quickly rode the reins. It was supposed to take over a year to travel, but he shortened it to only half a month. Hurry up, don't you want to die? A young man in black shouted angrily when he saw Chen Fan walking slowly. Why do you listen to me and obediently escort me to the Forbidden Mountains? Chen Fan looked at the three guards and sneered. Now, they are only a few dozen meters away from the Forbidden Mountains. The place covered by dark clouds ahead is the destination of this trip, the Forbidden Mountains. Escorting you? Are you joking? Forbidden place, this is the way you chose to die. A young man in black sneered. Do you really agree if I choose you? Are you brainless or something? Chen Fan walked and didn't forget to ask. Are you really itching? A slightly chubby young man was furious when he saw Chen Fan, a scumbag, daring to mock them. With a divine power, he swept through the void and flew Chen Fan Jin several meters away. Hurry inside, and we'll kill you in the ink. The last tall young man threatened. As he spoke, he approached Chen Fan and pointed his middle finger towards the center of his eyebrows. In an instant, Chen Fan felt as if his brain was about to explode. Something seems to be separating. Chen Fan did not stop. This large area is already a forbidden mountain range, but it is just the outskirts. Internally is the taboo of terror. As Chen Fan silently recited the sign in, he held on to the tall young man's wrist. Ding, successful check at IN, reward for 10,000 years of cultivation. After a composite sound, the sky suddenly changed color. An inexplicable deterrence has descended. The person who ingested Chen Fan's divine soul instantly felt a divine gaze. His continuous output of mana solidified, his eyes wide open, and his face full of disbelief. The other two were also average, with beads of sweat on their foreheads and widened eyes fixed on Chen Fan. This is impossible. How could there be taboos? This is the periphery. The slightly chubby young man said in astonishment, not expecting such an aggressive atmosphere to erupt from the periphery. Boom! Chen Fan's body made a dull sound, and pure forces swam through his limbs. Ding, the host is absorbing 10,000 years of cultivation. Due to the host's physical condition, a large amount of mana rushing in will cause the host to explode, so the host can stop at any time. When the electronic synthesizer started, Chen Fan's face turned red. The bottleneck of gathering spirit triple has loosened. Boom! Another muffled sound. Gathering 4 levels of spirit. The magic is still being infused, and Chen Fan gritted his teeth, feeling the pain of his meridians being stretched open by the powerful magic. Sweat remains, gather the spirit 5 times. 6-fold. 7-fold. 9 heavens. He quickly arrived at the realm of destruction. Internal impurities, and any impurities that are not conducive to cultivation are eliminated by spiritual power. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Taboos of Attendance. Heavenly Skill, Wandao Immortal Sect is in an uproar. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Taboos of Attendance. Heavenly Skill, Wandao Immortal Sect is in an uproar. The Forbidden Mountains are a forbidden land, and since ancient times, there have been terrifying legends about the Forbidden Mountains in Dongzhou. Some people say there is a great terror in the Forbidden Mountains, while others say there are hidden opportunities in the Forbidden Mountains. No one knows whether it is true or false. A person who once had a true divine realm entered it, but the result was that the person had a serious expression and suffered serious injuries. The Taboo mountain range is divided into two parts: inner and outer. The inner part is the existence of taboos, while the outer part is very safe. Now, those three disciples of the Wandao Immortal sect who came with Chen Fan are all dumbfounded. Ahead, the guy who had just been abolished from cultivation and reached the third level of spiritual gathering after recultivation unexpectedly reached the realm of physical destruction in just a few breaths. They can't believe what's happening before them. How could someone break through so quickly? And that person has also been deposed before. As they watched Chen Fan's breath continue to rise, the three of them thought of the other party's proactive request to come to the Forbidden Mountains. The smell of trickery spread, and the three of them were not sure what was happening because what was happening before them was too eerie. Surprisingly, it broke through again. The slightly chubby young man widened his eyes as he watched Chen Fan break through from the physical realm to the Dharma-breaking realm. Just a few breaths, the accumulated spiritual realm scum they could easily suppress before has already approached their more than 10 years of hard work. Taboos, this is taboo. The tall young man was so frightened that his spirits were rising. Run quickly, this is not a good omen. The three of them were sweating cold sweat on their foreheads, and seeing inexplicable things filled their hearts with fear, fearing what taboos would haunt them. After all, this is a forbidden mountain range with an incomprehensible strangeness. Reaching the realm of breaking the law, Chen Fan did not continue to choose to break through. Stopping the cultivation of the system, Chen Fan's expression slowly recovered. Practice requires gradual progress and a solid foundation, so that future skyscrapers will not collapse. Breaking the legal realm is the third level of this system. He looked at the three people leaving in the distance without any intention of rushing up and giving them a few shots. After all, those few people are all in the realm of Lingqiao, and I am not yet a match. Ding, the Check.in location has been updated. Please proceed to the Forbidden Mountains for further Check.in. Suddenly, the system's prompt sound came on, and Chen Fan turned his head to look inside the distant Forbidden Mountains. He only then noticed the terror of the mountains beneath the dark clouds when he arrived at the door. Dead air, a strong breath of dead air. I won't be devoured by taboos when I enter here, will I? Chen Fan asked. Ding, the system will escort you, please check in with peace of mind. Upon hearing these words, Chen Fan breathed a slight sigh of relief. He tentatively put one hand in, but nothing unusual happened. He then calmly crossed the stone tablet that read, "Do not let strangers enter," and entered the interior of the Forbidden Mountains. Ding, please go to the Forbidden Ancient Tree to complete the Check.in and reward the Forbidden Heavenly Skill. The synthesized sound rang out again, and Chen Fan's eyes lit up. A navigation-like panel appeared in front of him. Forbidden Ancient Tree, located 4.5 kilometers away from his location. With curiosity, Chen Fan began to search for the ancient tree. On the outskirts of the Forbidden Mountain Range, the three disciples did not leave but entered the interior of the Forbidden Mountain Range after seeing Chen Fan restore that strange state. They immediately widened their eyes in disbelief. However, the shocking emotion had not yet dissipated, and they once again saw a scene that startled their chins. I saw the young man who had only broken the Dharma realm, crossing the stone tablet where strangers are not allowed to enter unscathed. The shadow stone was activated, leaving a deep imprint on this scene. The tall young man opened his mouth wide and asked with a slight numbness, "Didn't a strong man from the other side once enter the Forbidden Mountains?" The young man in black beside him nodded numbly and said, "I heard that as soon as he entered the mountain range, he began to decompose and was devoured by invisible taboos." The slightly chubby young man said, "But why is this? How can scumbags get in?" The three of them couldn't believe what happened today, and they didn't dare to stay any longer. They left one by one in a disheveled state. Forbidden ancient tree, this is a black tree that stands at 10,000 feet tall. The tree trunk is so large that it needs to be surrounded by hundreds of people. This tree is pitch black, with its leaves and branches all pitch black, emitting a taboo smell that makes people feel uncomfortable. Chen Fan chose to clock in, and a strange memory flooded into his mind. Name. Taboo Heavenly Skill. Level. Against Heaven, System Rating Level. Epic, Legend, Against Heaven, Unknown, Source. In the era of taboos, the master of taboos established martial arts. Detail Division. Taboos 1, Understanding the Power of Taboos, Taboos 2, Mastering the Power of Taboos, Taboos 3, Embodied Taboos. Tiangong Secret Technique. The Wheel of Taboos. After reading the detailed information of the system, Chen Fan gathered the cultivation methods of the techniques in his mind, and his eyes became even more radiant. Before he could be happy, the sound of a check.in reminder and the navigation panel appeared again. Ding, please go to Daoshan to sign in and reward Shura Blade. Looking at the navigation panel in front of him, Chen Fan was not in a hurry to sign in. Now he is not very familiar with the interior of the Forbidden Mountains, and if he blindly moves around, he may encounter something difficult to deal with. Therefore, the top priority is to enhance his combat power so that he can explore, check in, and upgrade in the Forbidden Mountains. Now he is not worried about the issue of cultivation. He has been cultivating for 10,000 years and can absorb that 10,000-year cultivation if he wants to break through. He is also not worried about the issue of cultivation. With the foundation of the taboo heavenly skill, which is an anti-heaven level cultivation, he believes that the future path can go far. Thinking that he would come to the black lawn under the taboo ancient tree and start building his own residence, he would have to live here in the future. Eating and sleeping outdoors may seem a bit cramped, and it doesn't fit his identity as a traveler. With the memories of building a wooden house in his mind, he didn't have the conditions and didn't dare to mess with taboo ancient trees. So he picked up some broken wood, broken stones, and black grass around him and started building. What reassured him was that the system had not tricked him, and the power here had not really affected him. It took him half an hour to successfully build a small tent. Enter it and operate the cultivation path according to the taboo heavenly skill. As soon as I entered, it lasted for 3 days. The interior of the Forbidden Mountains remained lifeless, shrouded in dark clouds, and peaceful. But in the Immortal Sect, it is not peaceful anymore. The image recorded by a shadow stone once again plunged Muchinga, who was preparing to forget Chen Fan, into deep doubt. Not only her, but also the elders inside the door were extremely puzzled and nervous. The sect leader even called out fellow fox friends and dog friends of the same level, but it is difficult to determine the exact reason. This son disregards the power of taboos. Is there any treasure related to the taboo mountain range on his body? The head of an immortal sect next door to the Wandao immortal sect guessed. Treasures are impossible to have. When he was expelled from the sect, he only had simple tattered clothes on his body, not even a storage ring, and his cultivation was ruined. He was just a mortal. How could the Dantian spirit domain possibly have hidden items, said an old man. But what exactly is it? Why don't we go on a trip? Take him out and study, maybe we'll discover something unknown, said the evil sect leader In Sisi, with an excited expression in his eyes. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Breaking through the other shore and heading to Daoshan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Breaking through the other shore and heading to Daoshan. Everyone refused the opinion of this patriarch. The taboo mountain range is too unknown, even if they are true gods with cultivation, they dare not venture into it casually. In the end, they didn't discuss anything and hastily left. When everyone left, the head of the Wandao immortal sect called the Saint Muchinga to inquire about the situation. All I have done is just to eliminate the evil in my heart. I hope Master doesn't blame me, Muchinga said firmly with a lowered head. She has no regrets about this matter. If she wants to go further on the path of cultivation, she must retaliate against Chen Fan and resolve the obstacle in her heart. She was previously influenced when she broke through the realm, but now that she has retaliated against that person, her mentality has improved a lot. The leader of the Wandao Immortal sect did not blame Muchinga, saying that this action was not a big deal. The Forbidden Mountains, that guy may have just not been devoured for a while. Perhaps there was a sudden change in the Forbidden Mountains. Didn't the two disciples who came back earlier mention the strangeness? Muchinga said her guess. When it comes to taboos, it's hard for us to say anything. Since things have already happened, let's go. Our 10,000 Dao Immortal sect doesn't lack such a disciple. The sect leader showed a gentle smile and waved his hand to signal that Muchinga could go down. Taboo Mountains. In 3 days, Chen Fan successfully cultivated the forbidden heavenly skill, an anti-heavenly level technique, to the introductory stage. He was still a bit short of realizing the power of taboos in the first level of enlightenment, and he was not in a hurry. After practicing the martial arts, he spent several days consolidating this sudden surge of cultivation. 1 month later, the cultivation was consolidated, and Chen Fan once again infused 10,000 years of cultivation. The injection of cultivation opened up his meridians and caused pain in all aspects of his body. But this pain was nothing to him, it was never as painful as being infused with cultivation for the first time. The breaking of the Dharma realm was successful, and he reached the Lingqiao realm. The realm of Lingqiao is to construct a bridge connecting the same path in the Dantian Lingyu, which requires meticulous refinement and gradual completion. Chen Fan's cultivation also followed this principle. The spirit bridge was polished several times, and in the end, the divine soul stepped over the bridge and reached the end of the other shore. Now his cultivation has surpassed his original cultivation and is a master in the other side realm. Retreating once has given him a lot of insights into cultivation, and many of the previously confused and exploratory realms have reached a perfect state. He stopped absorbing his cultivation and prepared to consolidate it, then marched towards the altar at the end of the other shore. This realm is the watershed of the entire system. Under the shrine, it is impossible for a person to rebel and rise to power, even for those like the Holy Son and Virgin who treat higher-level battles as food, because there is a fundamental difference between the two. Under the altar, the understanding of the Tao is 1, and above the altar, it is 10+. In the past 6 months, he has reached the other side of the world in cultivation, and his cultivation of the forbidden heavenly skill has not fallen behind. He has entered the first stage and has realized the power of that taboo. After being able to perceive the power of taboos, he can see many things that can be perceived with power in the Forbidden Mountains. For example, before he realized the taboo ancient tree around him, he only felt that it was powerful and mysterious. But after realizing it, he felt that the ancient tree was very familiar and he could communicate with it and use his power. In addition to his perception of ancient trees, what shocked him was that his small thatched cottage was also not simple. The black grass spread on the rotten wood emitted a strong taboo force, and he had a guess in his heart that if there was no systematic protection, the black grass would be swallowed and decomposed by taboos when he touched it. After staying for more than half a year, he did not notice anyone or any living creatures. Coupled with his understanding of the forbidden heavenly skill and some knowledge of this mountain range, he was ready to continue signing in. Putting aside the check that IN task for half a year, going to Daoshan to check in became his top priority. Chen Fan reorganized himself, clicked on the system navigation, and headed towards Daoshan, which was 40 miles away from him. Not long after he left, on a hill 100 meters away, a scruffy old man poked out his bald head. The old man looked at the forbidden ancient tree with a hint of hesitation in his eyes. After hesitating for a while, he finally felt that he could give it a try. That young man has been under the tree for half a year now, and this ancient tree has not attacked him. I believe it must be because the ancient tree is sleeping. It is our cultivator's duty to take advantage of the current situation to grab a good wave of things. The bald old man chuckled and transformed into a light curtain to cover himself, avoiding direct contact with the black grass under the ancient tree. The towering ancient tree was towering, and the old man had just entered its range when he heard a strange sound. The sound exploded, and then the black branches of the ancient tree extended together, with terrifying forces attacking the old man. In an instant, the old man was so scared that he immediately turned his head, his feet clouded, and he flew a few kilometers away in just a few breaths, panting heavily and his bald head covered in sweat. What's going on? The ancient tree isn't sleeping yet. Why hasn't the boy under the ancient tree been attacked? What's the situation? The old man had a question mark on his head. He had been observing Chen Fan for a long time, witnessing his opponent's rapid progress in cultivation. He speculated in his heart that it might be a powerful cultivator who reincarnated with memories. In such a terrifying place, everything is eerie, and he doesn't believe that the guy across from him would be an ordinary young man. The old man was thinking of peeking into the little details of Chen Fan's life, and suddenly thought of the other person's changing breath one day. That was when the other party reached the other shore, and at that time, a strange aura emanated from their body. Does this aura seem to be from the same origin as the Forbidden Mountains? My ancestor. Shouldn't you have encountered the ancient power of embodied taboos? The old man was startled by his own speculation. The direction he went to was Dao Mountain. Was he looking for the Dao ancestor there? With curiosity in his heart, the old man watched Chen Fan's departure and secretly followed him. Daoshan. This mountain is thousands of zhang high, and Chen Fan was slightly disappointed at first glance. It has nothing to do with the name Daoshan. Before coming, he imagined that this mountain was filled with peerless and excellent swords. Reality tells him that this is a barren mountain. Chen Fan uses spiritual power to attach to his eyes, increasing his vision. This method is an ordinary spiritual method, mainly to turn one's eyes into telescopes. Glancing over the barren mountain, Chen Fan saw something resembling a house on the mountaintop. Someone. Startled in his heart, he quickly put away the Shura blade he had obtained from signing in. It's better to take a step first. I'm just a little scumbag from the other side now. Chen Fan spoke in his heart, and as he turned his head, an electronic synthesizer suddenly sounded, refreshing the new Check.in location. Ding, the Check.in area is refreshed. Please go to the Shura Ancient Monument to reward the Shura Dao. After the prompt sound, a navigation appeared in front of him, and the target was clearly the barren mountain called Daoshan behind him. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Encountering the Ancestor of the Immortal Sect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Encountering the Ancestor of the Immortal Sect. That place should not be inhabited by people, maybe it's a relic. That's right, it's the Shura Monument. It's my presbyopia. Chen Fan chuckled and comforted himself in his heart. The spiritual eye was moving, and indeed, the thing that seemed like a house just now was something I was afraid of in my heart, which led me to misread. Although the spiritual eye skill is good, it is difficult to fully see things on the mountaintop from 1,000 feet down. This is not a 1,000-mile eye, but a superficial way to improve vision. It can only see flies 100 meters away, which is not comparable to the spiritual eye skill specially cultivated. Chen Fan stepped into the barren mountain road and his mood gradually calmed down along the way. Can the Check.in location recommended by the system be dangerous? Didn't the taboo ancient tree itself live below for more than half a year before? Entering Daoshan, Chen Fan did not notice a bald old man following behind. The bald man saw Chen Fan swaggering and entering the Sword Mountain without any worries, and his heart immediately lifted. Some unpleasant memories flooded into his heart, and he remembered the old man on the mountain who had just met and gave him a knife. If it weren't for his cultivation as a divine king and some medicinal herbs found in the Forbidden Mountains, he might have fallen and been split in half on the spot. TSK, this great ability is truly extraordinary. Perhaps he is truly an ancient tycoon, otherwise that irritable old man would have come out to strike him long ago. The bald old man thought so, his gaze following the little dot. However, he dare not be too arrogant, afraid of being discovered and then suppressed. It took Chen Fan an hour to reach the summit of Qianzhong Mountain. Sure enough, the mountaintop was bare, with only a black stone tablet standing tall. There are only 2 characters on the stone tablet, Daoshan. After Chen Fan signed in, information about the Shura Dao flooded into his mind. From the method of practicing swordsmanship, to the sword manual, and even some insights into the realm of transformation are all in my heart. There's no check that IN location left. Chen Fan waited for a while, but didn't hear the announcement of the tourist attraction. He took the initiative to ask. Ding, we're exploring. The system replied with a cold sentence. Anyway, I'll harvest a knife today, a method of repairing it, and it's not too late to check in after integrating it. Chen Fan thought this way and jumped down from the mountaintop, riding the wind. Quickly, he left this knife mountain and was very safe all the way without any obstacles. Upon landing, Chen Fan headed towards the direction of the forbidden ancient tree, but as he was about to leave, an old voice came out. Suddenly, he straightened up and realized that danger was coming. Being able to survive in places like the Forbidden Mountains is at least the existence of a true divine realm. If someone stops him now, then this person is guaranteed to be a true god. Chen Fan tidied up his lower muscles and looked back with the calmest expression. There stood an old man who was 1.6 meters tall and dressed in rags. The old man has no hair, but he has a thick white beard on his chin. Your Excellency, he said in a tone that pretended to be indifferent. The bald old man saw Chen Fan being so polite to him and immediately understood that he had made the right bet. That great power, in front of him now did not have too much outrageous power. If the other party really has strong power, why not be scolded for this rude inquiry? If you encounter someone with a bad temper, it's not impossible to come up with a single blow. I am Chu Wuheng, the Immortal Sect of the 10,000 Paths. The bald old man bowed slightly and lowered his posture, as if facing a senior. Chen Fan across from him nodded, but soon a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Wandao Immortal Sect. Chu Wuheng. Isn't this special name the name of our ancestors? Chen Fan was shocked in his heart, but on the surface, he remained motionless like a mountain. Unfortunately, in the face of the old man's restlessness, there were still flaws in his composure. It was only then that the bald old man realized the fleeting amazement in Chen Fan's eyes. Senior, do you know I'm here? The bald old man's face lit up with excitement and he immediately asked. Senior. Is your posture so low? Am I so confident? Chen Fan was puzzled in his heart, but he didn't understand where his cow was, so he could only play tricks and become a master. I've heard that the founder of the 10,000 Dao Immortal Sect once broke through all obstacles and swept away the 6 major demons, making the Dongzhou demon sect gasp for breath. However, when I heard that Zhuan Sunda Dao had gone, I didn't expect you to appear here. Chen Fan said a few words indifferently, his eyes showing some approval, which could be considered recognition of his former ancestor. Upon hearing Chen Fan talk about his deeds like this, Chu Wuheng's smile became even stronger, and he grinned and said humble words. Chen Fan saw his former ancestor so humble, and immediately thought to himself that if this old man found out in the future that he was an abandoned disciple of the 10,000 Immortal Sect, what would be his reaction? What are you doing to stop this seat for? Chen Fan said calmly. Having been here for a long time, I know the horror of some things, and I want to know how seniors get through the Sword Mountain. Chu Wuheng also became serious and asked curiously. This question can very well reveal Chen Fan's identity. If the other party says he entered casually, it is guaranteed to be a reincarnation of a big shot, and this big shot is still related to the Forbidden Mountains. Otherwise, why didn't the irritable old man on the mountain appear and give him a knife? If the answer is to use certain means, it can only be said that this is a powerful predecessor, but it has nothing to do with the Forbidden Mountains. If there is one, how could they enter their own home and use means? Chen Fan, seeing Chu Wuheng's curious gaze, was also pondering his own persona in the other person's mind through this question. Still maintain some style. Having made up his mind, Chen Fan looked at Chu Wuheng with a slightly different gaze and said with a puzzled expression, "Is this Dao mountain in danger?" This is true, but it also tests his skills. Have you not encountered an old man with white hair? Chu Wuheng probed, already having an answer in his heart. There are many formations and mechanisms set up by the old man with white hair in Daoshan. He had already witnessed the comprehensive attack of Daoshan. At that time, the entire barren mountain was covered with colorful knives, each emitting a heart-wrenching aura, with high quality in terrifying qualities. Are you sure what you're saying is a threat? Chen Fan looked helpless and waved his hand before leaving gracefully. He couldn't keep up any longer. The old man in front of him was the founder of the place where he used to be. If he fooled others like this, he would eventually burst into laughter. Even if he had received professional training, it was useless. Looking at Chen Fan's graceful figure, the bald old man realized. My situation is too small. How can the danger I feel be compared to this senior? The old man sighed slightly, feeling that his state of mind was privately acquired. His vision was opening up, and a new path was about to emerge. In the past, he never had the chance to meet strong people because he was already very strong, so his vision and perspective were limited. But now, after meeting a big shot, he truly felt what terror was. With a slight gaze, he looked at the faint and elusive aura on Chen Fan's body. This aura perfectly matches the entire Forbidden Mountain range, and one's identity has already been revealed. Absolutely, the reincarnated master didn't run away. This thigh, Chu Wulan will hold it tightly before speaking. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Immortal Buff, Reincarnation of the Heavenly Lord Haixin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Immortal Buff, Reincarnation of the Heavenly Lord Haixin. Returning to the thatched cottage under the taboo ancient tree, as soon as Chen Fan lay down, he saw a white lightning flash across the gloomy sky. Then, a deafening muffled sound spread. A light rain started to fall in the sky, but under the protection of the taboo ancient tree, which is 10,000 feet tall, Chen Fan below was not soaked by the rain. Only when the strong wind blew by, the black grass he had laid on the roof fell into the distance. Chen Fan did not chase, the black grass flying randomly sat under the cabin, quietly gazing into the distance. Speaking of which, this was the first rainy day he encountered when he came to the Forbidden Mountains. The heavy rain lasted for 3 or 4 days, washing away the ground and leaving the earth in chaos. Chu Wuheng's attitude indicates that this Forbidden Mountain range has a presence that he fears, and I have lived for so long without encountering anything dangerous. Can this be said that the system has blocked the danger? There is also the danger on Mount Dao, and even when I stepped into it, I didn't encounter any abnormalities. Chen Fan thought about the bald old man he met a few days ago and felt that he could obtain intelligence from the old man. Ding, the check.in location has been refreshed. Please go to the Reincarnation C to sign in. Rewards include an indestructible buff bonus. Suddenly, the silent system prompt sound came on. Chen Fan, who was pondering for a moment, stared at the light curtain in front of him and opened his mouth wide. Unbreakable buff bonus. What kind of thing? He's confused. What is this thing? No, there's still a sea in this mountain range. Chen Fan is puzzled. How could there be such a thing as a sea in this place? It's understandable to say it's a lake. With doubts in mind, Chen Fan left the protected area of the taboo ancient tree. As soon as he left, he saw the bald old man rubbing against it and emerging. I have seen my senior, Chu Wuheng respectfully bowed. Chen Fan nodded slightly. Where are you going this time, senior? Are you willing to take me with you? Chu Wuheng had a humble smile on his face, and his slightly cloudy eyes were filled with anticipation. The fact that the big shot in front of him can survive under the taboo ancient tree and safely pass through the Sword Mountain demonstrates his ability. He needs to rely on the power of this big shot to explore taboos. "I'm afraid you won't dare to go over," Chen Fan said with a slightly mysterious smile on his face. Upon hearing this, Chu Wuheng frowned slightly and was about to inquire when he saw that Chen Fan had already left. "I am going to the Sea of Reincarnation. If you have the courage, then follow along." A voice rang out in a leisurely manner, and in the same place, Chu Wuheng's eyes shrank and his body was enveloped by waves of coldness. Wheel. Reincarnation Sea. Some terrifying memories surged in his heart, and Chu Wuheng's face turned pale. However, after thinking about the big shot, he slowly followed suit. "How much do you know about the Sea of Reincarnation?" After Chu Wuheng followed, Chen Fan showed a look of taking the exam as a junior and smiled. "I have only been to the Sea of Reincarnation once. When I went there, I didn't quite understand, so I was blocked by the taboo seawater. Then my body showed signs of decomposition. If it weren't for the critical moment when the owner of the Sea of Reincarnation appeared, I would probably have died in that place." Chu Wuheng talked about his past on his own, sweat oozing from his bald head. What he means by saying this is that this problem is too difficult to handle. "I don't know, please don't be angry, senior." Upon hearing this, Chen Fan secretly remembered the existence of a creature in the Sea of Reincarnation, and it seemed quite kind. If it weren't for this, it would not have been possible to save Chu Wuheng. Perhaps this is a good opportunity for interaction. With a firm determination, Chen Fan's pace has accelerated. The Reincarnation Sea is an underground river located beneath the Forbidden Mountains. Chen Fan and his companions walked 70.80 miles to find the entrance to the underground. As soon as they entered, Chen Fan was shaken by the area. The underground world was not as pitch black as he believed, and on the surrounding walls, there were red crystals emitting light. The temperature is moderate, making it a great place to live. The underground river is incredibly wide, with no visible end at first glance. It is not a narrow undercurrent, and at first glance, it really has a taste of the sea. In addition to these feelings, he also sensed a familiar aura. The Sea of Reincarnation before him emitted a familiar aura, which was the power of taboos. Chen Fan fell onto the river with one step, ready to use the power of taboos at any time in secret to resolve taboo attacks. Falling on the river, everything around was calm, and there was no taboo ceiling mentioned by Chu Wuheng. Seeing this scene, Chu Wuheng's admiration for Chen Fan became even stronger in his heart. He tentatively asked, "Senior, can we travel together?" Chen Fan nodded slightly, indicating that it was okay. Upon seeing this, Chu Wuheng immediately smiled and suspended his divine power behind Chen Fan. However, as soon as he approached the Sea of Reincarnation, a large number of forces emitting a strange aura spread out. The calm water flow began to surge restlessly, transforming into chains of water. Chu Wuheng suddenly felt his hair stand on end in his heart. As he was about to run away, he saw Chen Fan raise his hand. A white stream of light with the same aura flashed by, and in just a moment, the chaotic atmosphere and seawater became calm, stabilized by the forbidden power exerted by Chen Fan. With the protection of taboo breath, Chu Wuheng is no longer being attacked by the Sea of Reincarnation. And Chen Fan, who had finished all of this, also breathed a sigh of relief. The reason why he agreed to this old guy was not only because he wanted to ask questions, but also because he wanted to test his taboo power. He has reached the first level of perfection in the forbidden heavenly skill. Once only able to gain a slight understanding, now one can rely on the power of some taboos. However, these are just taboo forces in this area. To use taboos on his own, he needs to thoroughly reach the second level. After completing the check.in, detailed information about the indestructible buff appeared on the light screen in front of me. Name: Immortal buff effect. Has 1 hour of invincible time. Cooling time is 24 hours. Level. Against heaven, sleeping in a slot. An hour of invincible time. Chen Fan felt incredulous as he looked at the description. He originally thought the name of this buff was a scam, but now it seems that this system is really not a scam. If he can be invincible for an hour, which means he won't die, wouldn't he just wave whatever he wants? Just leave before invincible time runs out. We still can't wave, we need to develop in a lewd way. Chen Fan quickly dispelled the inflated thoughts in his heart. This invincible time is only 1 hour. If you encounter a formation, won't you feel cool? Just as I was thinking about it, a whirlwind suddenly swept ahead. Immediately, a figure appeared in front of him. Chu Wuheng, who was beside him, instinctively took a step back and looked at the figure with a serious expression on his face. Chen Fan also showed a serious expression, looking at the person who slowly condensed his appearance. This is a middle-aged man in his 30s and 40s, with soft facial features and mature temperament. There is a gentle feeling between his eyebrows, making him the type of teenage assassin. I've seen my senior, Chu Wuheng said with a bow. Chen Fan remained motionless and quietly watched the sudden appearance of the person. The person across from him looked at Chen Fan and slowly smiled. Are you a fellow Taoist who is deeply trapped in taboos? He guessed slightly in his heart and introduced himself, in the next reincarnation, the Lord of the Sea, Xin. Who are you? Ronin, Chen Fan. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Terror Recovery. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Terror Recovery. At the end of the Reincarnation Sea, there is a palace suspended on the water surface. Under the leadership of Xin, Chen Fan entered this towering palace. The decorations inside were very ancient, and the walls were made of red crystal stones, emitting red light and gentle warmth. Chu Wuheng did not follow Chen Fan to the main hall. With the permission of Xin, he wandered around in the sea of reincarnation. Are you a reincarnator? Xin brewed a cup of tea for Chen Fan and asked his doubts. In his eyes, Chen Fan exudes a great terror that exudes taboos, blending in with the entire mountain range like one entity. This is a symbol of being deeply trapped in taboos, but the cultivation of this guy across from him is too weak. Generally speaking, such a weak person cannot fall into taboos. A single breath in the Forbidden Mountains can make this person fly into ashes, unless there is a strong guard, otherwise it is the power of reincarnation, which has long been a way to fight against taboos. After hearing this, Chen Fan frowned and thought for a moment. He didn't reveal his information and shook his head, saying, I'm not a reincarnated person. Since this place is called the Sea of Reincarnation, I believe it is very clear about reincarnation. I do know a little about reincarnation, but I haven't figured out the situation of my fellow Taoist. Xin smiled and didn't delve into the matter, but changed the topic. Nowadays, the Forbidden Mountains are not a peaceful place. If my fellow Taoist is looking for something mysterious, why not give up this idea? Why? Chen Fan was puzzled. There are too many secrets, taboos, and terror in this place. Now the terror seems to be reviving. The Taoist friends on the Sword Mountain and the Taoist friends on the Spirit Earth have already left, and I am also preparing to leave. Xin showed a hint of helplessness. Chen Fanhua became more and more confused as he listened. Why did a great terror suddenly appear? And the strong man in front of him is helpless and wants to leave. Don't you want to confront me? I naturally want to. After all, it is also a place where we have lived for thousands of years, and after falling into taboos, the outside world is not suitable for people like us. We need to find a new taboo place to survive. Tomorrow, I will go to the source and check the situation with the Daoist friends on Daoshan and Lingtu. I advise you to leave as soon as possible if there is nothing urgent. Xin sighed and looked around, his eyes filled with endless nostalgia. How long before the real outbreak? Chen Fan was frightened by Xin Tianjuan's appearance and immediately asked. There are only signs of recovery now, ranging from 500 years to 2,000 years. Dao, you still have time to consider, Xin Tianjun suddenly smiled and said. Chen Fan nodded and stood up to clasp his fists. Thank you very much, Taoist. Currently, I don't want to leave. There is a last resort here. If there is any way to obtain me in the future, please let me know. It depends on what level Dao you can reach then, Xin Tianjun smiled slightly. Later, after chatting for a while, Chen Fan left with this important intelligence. Ding, the check that IN location is refreshed. Please go to link to Bagua Mountain to sign in and reward the Tai Chi diagram. As soon as I left the Sea of Reincarnation, the system beeped. Ling 2. Chen Fan's gaze fixed. This place is what Xin Tianjun mentioned before. Due to the maintenance of character design, he did not inquire in detail about the location of the spiritual land. Ling 2, Daoshan, and Reincarnation Sea are definitely of the same level. There are also people like Xin Tianjun in 3 places. From the observation of Xin Tianjun, it can be seen that the strength of the other 2 should not be too weak. Xin Tianjun gave him an unfathomable feeling, blending with the Forbidden Mountains. Even if he reaches the other shore now, he will find no trace. Chen Fan decisively chose to follow the navigation to Ling to Bagua Mountain to complete the check that IN. There is no impermeable wall in the world, within the myriad immortal sects of the outside world. Chen Fan's intelligence was transmitted through the 3 attendants on that day. Many people believe that the story of the Wandao Immortal sect abandoning its disciples and entering the Forbidden Mountains without dying is just bragging and unbelievable. How could a disciple enter the Forbidden Mountains alone without dying? This is not realistic. Entering under the true God will lead to death. Even true gods cannot guarantee 100% safety. Master, I heard you're going to verify that rumor. Can you take me with you? A certain immortal sect, a young man kneeling on the ground, said the woman in front of him. This woman is beautiful, with a tall figure and delicate features. Although she appears gentle, deep contact gives off an indescribable coldness. As the disciple of this woman, the young man always follows the rules and regulations, and every time he speaks, he must consider it several times, afraid of offending his master. If he's still alive, do you want to spar with him? The woman slowly spoke, seeing through the disciple's thoughts. Yes, now I am hailed as the first pride in the outside world, and with this title, I also need to demonstrate my abilities. The young man responded seriously. The Forbidden Mountains are not a safe place, and my visit this time is not entirely to verify rumors. I am preparing to go to the mountains to find a herb called abyss grass, which is recorded in ancient books to grow near the Forbidden Mountains. The woman said lightly, meaning clearly that I don't care about you. The young man's face showed disappointment and slowly stood up, bowing and leaving. However, just as he arrived at the door, the woman suddenly spoke in an impatient tone, well, I see you also want to improve yourself, so it's okay to go. Just consider yourself seeing the world. Upon hearing this, the lost emotion on the young man's face instantly disappeared, and he immediately turned around and bowed gratefully. I'm going to the Forbidden Mountains, said another place, a cold woman with a stunning appearance and a calm demeanor. In front of her was an old woman, who didn't show any anger upon hearing the words. After careful consideration, she agreed. Girls are rare talents for them, equipped with a diverse physique and combined with the teachings of the sect, achieving great success. Their future achievements are bound to be limitless, at least under the guidance of their founder, the Ancestor of Flowers. Wandao Immortal Sect. At the end of the other shore, the Saint Muchinga, who had broken through the demon and entered the altar, breathed a sigh. After removing her inner demons, she successfully reached the divine realm. Once, when she had a demon in her heart, she found it difficult to cross the last step and could not climb the altar for a long time. Now, after removing the inner demons and spending more than half a year, I have finally consolidated my cultivation. Saint, why did you suddenly come to me? The young man with red hair saw Muchinga personally come to the door, and his delicate face was immediately covered with a smile. He took the initiative to brew tea and said with a slight flattery. Why take action against that guy? Muchinga said with a hint of displeasure in her eyebrows. That guy? Who is that? Red hair looked puzzled. Chen Fan. Muchinga said her name. This name once plagued her entire childhood. After being divorced, she felt extremely sad and lost in her heart. She didn't understand why the person had to cancel their engagement without even seeing her. Later, she followed her footsteps and stepped into the Immortal Gate, only then did she understand something. Now she has opened her eyes and can confidently say the name. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Advancing to the Divine Platform, Outsiders. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Advancing to the Divine Platform, Outsiders, Chen Fan. Isn't that why she took action against the Holy Maiden? Red Hair felt a little displeasure from the Holy Maiden, but there was no shame on her face, only that she felt the Holy Maiden was making a fuss. It's just a small person, if it weren't for the saint mentioning it, he would have forgotten the existence of such a person. He has entered the Forbidden Mountains. Do you think he can still live? Muchinga adjusted her emotions and asked softly. Definitely not, the shadow stone brought back by my 3 subordinates is incomplete. Maybe it was just not consumed by taboos for a while. It has been more than half a year now, and I have already died without any residue left. Red Hair said nonchalantly. Muchinga nodded, feeling that Chen Fan could not have undergone any abnormal changes. If there is any abnormality, why are you still an ordinary disciple in the Wandao Immortal sect for so many years? Perhaps it's just that she's overthinking. Just as Muchinga was preparing to bid farewell and leave, someone suddenly came over from outside the cave. This is a man in white. After seeing Muchinga and Red Hair, the man bowed and said, Saint, please enter the palace, my lord. Could you please inform me, senior brother? I'll go over now. Muchinga finished drinking the tea in her hand and made a bow to Red Hair. Red Hair returned the gift, looking puzzled. He invited the man in white into the cave and asked what had happened. Name. Tai Chi diagram level. Against heaven effect. Yin and Yang dual forces, dissolve and absorb attacks, arrange formations based on the 8 trigrams and 5 elements, and block the calculation of heavenly mechanisms. Returning to the taboo ancient tree, Chen Fan examined the description of the Tai Chi diagram. At first glance, he felt somewhat unsatisfied as he did not have the explosive power described in his previous life when he saw the gods. Although puzzled, he did not underestimate this thing. The rating of that indestructible buff system is against the sky, and this Tai Chi chart is probably not so simple. Shielding his mind, he fell into cultivation. After 10,000 years of cultivation, there are still 2/3 left, and he only used 1/3 of his strength to reach the other shore realm. In the next few days, he didn't rush to break through and upgrade, but chose to hone various means. For example, Shura Blade Path. He has practiced playing with knives before, and I dare not say he is a master, but he should be able to get started. Later, he cooperated with the Shura Dao and discovered the mystery of this Dao through cultivation. He borrowed a sword to merge the taboo heavenly skill, allowing every sword to rely on the power of taboos. With a single blow, he believed that those of the same level could die. Unless the other party can withstand the forbidden devouring. In addition, he also has various techniques, such as Tai Chi diagrams and indestructible buffs. Even if you cross the line and fight, don't panic. However, the prerequisite is that he needs to reach the shrine, because the gap between the shrine and the other shore is really too big. A month later, he consolidated his cultivation and entered a small stage of his sword path, starting to prepare for breakthroughs. Now he has reached the other side of the Dantian spirit domain, where there are several steps to climb and reach the highest altar. After 10,000 years of cultivation, Chen Fan's soul quickly gained power and began to step into those 9 steps step by step. With each step he takes, he needs to use more cultivation, and various difficulties arise during this period. However, these are all issues with his mood. He is already a person who follows his heart, and it is difficult for his mood to be affected. Even the hatred driven out by Mu Qingge is not worth mentioning. The appearance of the system has already healed the traces left by Mu Qingge. Under the injection of cultivation, the spiritual body possesses terrifying power. 9 steps, he spent a day climbing and completely reached the realm of the altar. At night, Chen Fan opened his eyes and broke through to the altar, feeling even more the terror of this world. The understanding of the Tao below the altar is 1, and above the altar is 10 plus. The more you understand, the more you realize the terror in these things. He carefully realized that his soul had already acquired the corresponding ability upon entering the altar. Soul wandering for thousands of miles is just a fleeting event. Taboos deeply ingrained in my heart, the path of this mountain range is too dark and terrifying. As soon as the soul body emerges, it becomes more insightful, making people feel like they are facing a towering existence. That existence can destroy billions of creatures in just one breath, which is the terror of taboos. Soul returning, Chen Fan's forehead was sweating with cold sweat, and he had some understanding of what Haixin Tianjun had said about the Great Terror. Suddenly, he felt something loosening. This has been a bottleneck that has been bothering him all along, the most important bottleneck of the taboo Tiangong, and now there are signs of loosening. Chen Fan immediately meditated and quickly entered a mysterious state. He felt that he was integrated with taboos. He could be a tree, a stone, a drop of water, or even a dark cloud in the taboo mountain range. A picture was constructed in his mind, and with a wave of his hand, the picture changed accordingly. The second level of the forbidden heavenly skill has reached the beginner level. Chen Fan never expected that the bottleneck that had been troubling him for a long time would be broken through like this. By reaching this second level, he can use the power of taboos on his own and no longer rely on the power of taboos between the forbidden mountains. He began to try to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Not everyone can devour the spiritual energy of this forbidden mountain range for cultivation. There is a forbidden aura in these spiritual energies, which ordinary people will die if consumed. Even true gods dare not devour this power without restraint. Now that Chen Fan's taboo heavenly skill has reached its dual level, he is able to absorb this power for his own use. Previously, he used to cultivate for thousands of years, but now he is finally using the power of heaven and earth to cultivate. The night wind is very noisy, and the black leaves on the taboo ancient tree make a noisy sound. Suddenly, a burst of breath erupted, and a black branch on the taboo ancient tree suddenly grew. The branches were moving very fast, piercing through the void and making a loud explosion. Under the cabin, Chen Fan suddenly opened his eyes. This was the breath of battle. He stood up and looked towards the other side, where a woman in white stood holding her arms. There is also a young man in purple next to the woman. Chen Fan's eyes flashed with spiritual light, and he looked at the two invaders with an unfriendly gaze. Externally, the woman quickly took a pill and looked at the hole in her arm that had been pierced, where black air was spreading. Her beautiful eyes were full of solemnity. "Who is your excellency?" Chen Fan suddenly spoke with a calm and indifferent voice. Upon hearing these words, the man and woman turned their gaze towards each other. What caught the eye was a man dressed in cloth. The man has delicate facial features, sword eyebrows and starry eyes, and a short stubble on the chin. His skin is ancient yellow, but upon closer inspection, it is not rough. The young man and the woman looked at each other and found that there were so many young people. Suddenly, the voice of Chen Fan from the Thousand Dao Immortal Sect rang out. Are you Chen Fan?" the young man asked tentatively. Across from him, under the big tree, Chen Fan was shocked and said, "Who are you?" It seems like this guy, Master. The young man's eyes lit up with excitement, but he looked at the Master beside him and became confused again. Because the Master in front of him was very wary of this guy, his expression was extremely serious. At this moment, the young man remembered and observed carefully, only to realize that Chen Fan had always been under that eerie tree. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Blocking the name of Dongzhou's first pride. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Blocking the name of Dongzhou's first pride. The young man's eyes slowly widened, hard to believe, as if he had drunk fake wine. After a while, his stamina suddenly burst out. Why can he exist safely in the Forbidden Mountains? Why can he be under this ancient tree? Why is his breath so eerie? A series of questions made the young man's gaze lose its luster, and he looked at the taboo ancient tree with a hint of confusion. Previously, her master, a true god and powerful person, was pushed back by a branch of a tree just as she approached the area and was also injured. This kind of thing makes it difficult for him, who doesn't have much knowledge, to believe. Outside, a true god stands tall and respected by all. Such a person can sweep 1,000 miles with a raised hand, but now they have been injured by a tree. A true god, a shrine. Chen Fan looked at the two of them with a displeased expression. I don't care where you know my name, but now that you have interfered with my cultivation, what should be done about this? Chen Fan, do you know who you're talking to? The young man scolded Chen Fan in his heart when he saw his arrogance, but there was no anger on his face. It's my fault to disturb your cultivation, but what compensation do you want? The woman looked at Chen Fan, her gaze still wary. She didn't relax just because the other person was on the altar. Being able to survive in such a place is not easy for anyone. Chen Fan didn't answer, just looked at the woman meaningfully. The other party must be looking for something inside the Forbidden Mountain range, and she was attacked by breaking into the Forbidden Ancient Tree area before. Can you say that the thing the other party is looking for is nearby? I know you are a senior, and you also know my background. I don't need to make things difficult for you. Just give something casually as compensation this time, Chen Fan said, reaching out and tapping on the thick tree pole. On the other side, the woman's eyebrows furrowed, even if serious, they were beautiful and moving, making one's mood surge. Is he going to make a deal with me? Do you see my intention? The woman guessed in her heart. Excuse me. She didn't rush to agree and took out a porcelain bottle wrapped in white light and threw it forward. As soon as the porcelain vase approached the area covered by the taboo ancient tree, a black leaf fell off. Chen Fan's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He lifted his hand and used the power of heaven and earth taboos to wrap the porcelain vase, which stopped the fallen leaves from attacking. Taking the porcelain bottle into his hand and opening it, he was pleasantly surprised. This porcelain bottle contains the 100 spirits pill. In the past, he was a practitioner of refining medicine, and he could tell at a glance that this pill was extraordinary. Danyao itself is a precious type, made by refining and blending hundreds of high-quality medicinal materials with spiritual qualities. The pill is crystal clear throughout the body, with perfect details of impurity treatment and a faint aroma overflowing. The effect of this pill is therapeutic and can quickly recover. It is worth 100,000 spirit stones and is an essential recovery medicine for the existence of true spiritual realm. For the Shintai realm, as long as there is still one breath, this pill can be saved. Seeing the woman's sincerity, Chen Fan did not embarrass them and gestured for them to leave. Master, this guy is so strange. The young man looked to one side and said. As the first pride of Dongzhou, he never encountered any geniuses and has experienced all kinds of physical fitness. But when facing Chen Fan, he only felt scared. This person has a taboo aura, which is why he did not die or be attacked by that ancient tree. In terms of combat power, he will not be very strong, the woman said. Didn't he just manipulate the taboo? Isn't that strong? The young man pointed out Chen Fan's actions when manipulating the taboo to protect the porcelain vase. It's just manipulation, he can't use taboos outside. In other words, he's stronger here. Without using taboos, he's nothing. You can propose to spar with him, but he can't use taboos. The woman took out another item and handed it to the young man. The young man looked at the box in his hand and opened it to see a crystal-clear jade plaque inside. A strange monster is carved on the jade plaque, with a chilling aura spreading. This is a semi-divine artifact. Master. The young man's eyes turned slightly red. Just use this as a bargaining chip, you must defeat him in order to obtain the abyss grass. The woman's gaze suddenly softened for a second, rubbing the young man's head and saying, I will definitely defeat him. Bet on my title as the first emperor of Dongzhou. The young man's gaze was bright and lively, looking at the towering tree in the distance. A few hours later, dawn broke. In the thatched cottage, Chen Fan saw the bald old man Chu Wuheng waving at him outside the forbidden ancient tree. Chen Fan stood up in confusion and approached the old man, asking, "What's up?" "Senior, many people have come to the Forbidden Mountains these days. I'm afraid something might happen." "Should we drive them away?" said Chu Wuheng. "Do you know those forces?" Chen Fan suddenly thought of the woman and young man he met last night and asked. A total of 4 forces have emerged. Another sect is the Wandao Immortal sect, founded by younger generations. The remaining ones are the Yin-Yang Immortal sect, the Supreme Immortal sect, and the Wanhua Immortal land. What do you think? The younger generation believes that we should go out. Those people overestimate their abilities and think that true gods can travel here freely, but little do they know that even the God King will inexplicably fall. Chu Wuheng said with emotion on his face. Let's take a look first. Chen Fan shook his head and felt that the people who entered were big chives. Did he soon scare a true God-strong person last night? After he finished speaking, Chu Wuheng's eyes suddenly froze, he raised his hand, and a white light shot towards a small hill a kilometer away. With a bang, the hill exploded, and a gloomy-looking old man appeared with a seductive young man. After being discovered, these two people didn't panic and slowly approached Chen Fan and Chu Wuheng. "Daoist friend, is it a bit unfair of you to do this?" The gloomy old man looked at Chu Wuheng, not being kind. "What? Do you still want to fight me?" Chu Wuheng's hunched body immediately straightened out, and a breath suddenly spread. Across from him, the unkind old man and the teasing evil young man's face suddenly changed. They were instantly pressed to the ground by this breath, their faces pressed against the ground, and their eyes filled with fear. "It's the elder of the God King. I don't know what's going on. If I collide with the elder, please redeem me." The old man shouted and begged. Chen Fan looked at the domineering bald old man, his mouth twitching slightly. If the power of this divine king falls on him, he may even kneel on the ground and say a plea for mercy. If this former ancestor found out that the person who had been calling his senior was actually just an abandoned disciple in his own sect, wouldn't he go crazy? Chen Fan suddenly thought of an awkward scene. Didn't the people of the 10,000 Dao Immortal sect come into this forbidden mountain range? If they meet later and those people explain their identity, then Chu Wuheng must have died of embarrassment. Chu Wuheng put away the pressure of the divine king, and the two of them stood up trembling and trembling. The evil young man looked up and saw Chen Fan at a glance. His eyes widened as he remembered the image of the shadow stone. You're not. With a loud bang, Chu Wuheng slapped the evil young man several tens of meters away, his face shattered, he spat out blood, and he fainted on the spot. Unexpectedly disrespectful to the senior, is that how your Yin-Yang Immortal sect educated the younger generation? Chu Wuheng shouted angrily. Please spare your life, senior. I just felt that the senior around you was somewhat similar to a friend, which made me lose my composure. Please forgive me. The gloomy old man knelt on the ground again, praying for forgiveness. End of this chapter.